Welcome to episode 49 of the School Transportation Nation podcast. I'm Tony Corbin, the publisher of School Transportation News. This episode is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software. And our tech tip is brought to you by Zonar, a leader in smart fleet management.
Hello, Nation. I'm Ryan Gray, Editor-in-Chief of School Transportation News. A little bit later, we're going to be joined by Laran Adkins. She is the Director of Transportation for Fort Payne City Schools in Northeast Alabama.
Excellent, Ryan. We're looking forward to that. And we just wrapped up our STN Expo virtual conference last week, and it was one heck of a show, Ryan. Had a really great time with that. I know school bus driver vaccines was a top session that our legal eagles had kind of jumped into. Can you make them do it? Can you not? What are all the legalities? And I know we're starting to see more and more school districts get approval for vaccines and jumping to the kind of the front of the line in terms of the priority list. We got some updates on what's going on with that?
Yeah, according to a report by Education Week, about half the states are now eligible to receive vaccinations for teachers and school staff. So that means that half of them aren't. Basically, a show of hands, or virtual one at least, at the STN Expo virtual last week, showed that there are some districts that have said, they're going ahead and getting that vaccine. Their school bus drivers are eligible. Most of them are saying that it is voluntary. So that's really what we wanted to get to the brass tacks on with our legal experts. So the session last week was hosted by legal experts Maria Dwyer and Katie Anderson of law firm Clark Hill PSC. They were discussing if employers can require their workers to get vaccinated. The answer essentially, it depends. Private companies, of course, have a greater ability to require vaccines than municipalities, like school districts, because municipalities are more beholden to certain constitutional requirements that private businesses may not. So think First Amendment rights. We've obviously seen a lot of that in our nation's news lately. Dwyer, she heads Clark Hill's Labor and Employment Group in Detroit. She shared that federal oversight largely comes in three forms. Employees are protected by Title VII of the Civil Rights Act to refuse vaccines because of legitimate religious beliefs. Personal preferences don't apply, so you can't just tell your employer, no, I think the government is making this up, or they don't work, or I don't want to do it. You actually have to show them a religious reason behind the decision. Really, Dwyer said, keep your attorney on speed dial. There's also the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which promotes compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which in turn limits employers' abilities to make most medical-related inquiries, and a vaccine could be considered part of that. And also, a vaccine could be considered necessary to an employee's job function. So there was a lot of talk about the nature of the job itself. And this comes back to what a lot of states are figuring out in terms of school bus drivers and their ability to get the vaccine, kind of where they rank. And so again, we have about half the states that have published some kind of plans and have actually rolled out the vaccine to support staff. Again, half of them have not. But we do know that school bus drivers could be covered under some of the age requirements. So we have about a dozen or so states that are actively rolling out the vaccine to people that are 65 and older, and certainly with medical conditions. So that could affect school bus drivers as well. Then there's Osha, at least for the 22 states that adhere to these regulations. OSHA's position for a while has been that employers can require employees to take flu and other vaccines, but employees must be informed of the benefits. So what happens if an employee refuses a vaccine? Depending on the safety-sensitive nature, again, of their job and type and size of workplace, their employer could bar them from entry so as not to adversely affect the health and safety of others or infringe on others' employees' rights and benefits. But this does not necessarily mean they are terminated or furloughed. They could be reassigned to another position within the organization. And we've seen a lot of school bus drivers already get reassigned where their districts are in hybrid only mode. So a lot of that cross functionality of jobs, this could continue on.
And Ryan, I think, I was reading, there was an Education Week report. I know Anthony Fauci was in the media again, making some comments about the status of schools and education and President Biden's administration's kind of ambitious goals to get everything open. Did we have any updates on that?
Yeah, essentially, he spoke at a town hall meeting last week hosted by the American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association. And he said there's a light at the end of the tunnel as far as the availability of vaccines are concerned for teachers and school staff. As you mentioned, Education Week reported on that town hall. And Fauci did admit that President Joe Biden's goal of safely reopening all K through 8 public schools over the next 3 months is, quote, may not happen because there may be mitigating circumstances, unquote. So again, right now, everything seems to be going a little bit better in terms of the caseload. I know here in California last weekend, everybody was ecstatic that outdoor dining reopened at restaurants. Basically statewide, or most of the counties followed Governor Gavin Newsom's order to go ahead and allow outdoor dining again. And this is because a lot of the ICUs have fallen in the number of beds that are taken up with COVID-19 patients. So that has relaxed things a little bit. Again, but we have this new strain that's come from UK, it's come from South Africa. There's been some developments with the vaccine. I know Johnson & Johnson came out the other day and said that their vaccine trials have shown that it has been effective, but with the original strain. So it has not been effective with this new strain. Heard that from a couple of other vaccine wish list companies out there. So there's a lot of them out there that we know of, hundreds and hundreds of applicants, potential vaccines out there. We really will just have to wait and see what the rest of this winter brings, if there's an additional spike, and what this new strain might mean.
Yeah, Ryan, there was just so much good discussion last week about vaccines and everything going on. And with school, firing back up, it's got everybody thinking, hey, what do we do next? And our tech tip today is brought to you by Zonar, a leader in smart fleet management. And they were also the title sponsor at STN Expo Virtual. And, 2020 was rough. You still rose to the occasion, and we're still finding new ways to move forward. But this year will have its own challenges. Zonar COO Michael Gould recently shared about how technology can help your fleet transition to the new normal as efficiently and safely as possible. If you missed it, check out his STN Expo keynote at zonarsystems.com/STN Expo to learn more. You can also go to stnexpovirtual.com to watch select sessions as well of anything that was captured at last week's conference. So I invite you to go over and check out the website. And we also have wonderful articles that Ryan and his team of specialists have written, recapping last week. So much good content. Make sure you go over to stnonline.com to catch up on all that good stuff. Ryan, budgets. It's all about the money, my friend. What is going on with all the money, funds, American Rescue Plan? What's that all look like right now?
Certainly districts right now, they're crunching the numbers. They're getting ready for 2021-2022 school year. Congressional work is just starting on President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan that he announced late last month when he took the Oval Office. The Associated Press reported that bipartisan compromise may be headed out the window. Here's a news flash. Surprise. As Democrats say they don't want to waste any more time amid the nation's high unemployment numbers. It appears that Democrats will flex their muscles amid controlling the House and the Senate, although those margins are razor slim, especially in the Senate. They're forcing through a reconciliation vote, it appears, as soon as this week, allowing them to pass the relief package with a simple 51-vote majority in the Senate. That, of course, is not coming across well with Republicans. According to the White House, President Biden still prefers a bipartisan package, but is unwilling to break apart the legislation and go the piecemeal route. Regardless, at this point, it appears the earliest a relief package could be passed would be March, and that's no good. Unemployment remains historically high at over 800,000. A federal report last week indicated the U.S. economy shrunk at the end of 2020 by 3.5%. That's the sharpest downturn since World War II. though not as bad as initially feared because of that enormous federal stimulus that the government pushed through in a couple times. And again, with Biden's rescue plan, that could be another 1.9 trillion. So we get back to districts preparing their budgets for the new year. There was a lot of really interesting STN Expo virtual conversations. Tony, you were a part of one with Greg Jackson, who's the executive director of transportation and fleet operations for Jeffco Public Schools in Denver. And a lot of your conversation with him was making purchase decisions amid a pandemic. What did he have to tell you about what Jeffco has been going through?
Yeah, Greg Jackson, who's the executive director there, he really gave me a lot of insights into kind of the way he's budgeted. Everything's been really tightly planned. Yeah, I mean, many transportation professionals, you guys are, planning down to the nickel, and he's done such a good job. He has some budget leftovers that he has to use before June 30th, and he was planning to take those funds and accelerate existing projects like video security, upgrades on his entire fleet, as well as outfitting tablets on his fleet. But he's also using funds like Medicaid reimbursement to capture reimbursements to pay for these programs in addition to his kind of budget leftovers. So really interesting stuff for him. And he really pointed to the fact that if some of these stimulus plans do hit and he's able to take advantage, he's really willing to invest in lot of different new health technologies, and I'm coining that, health technologies for the school transportation industry, right? That's cleaning, disinfecting strategies. And, one piece of technology that I talked to him recently about really jumped out, right? He has 430 plus school buses, and that means he's got to clean those buses twice a day, every run. What's the frequency that's happening? What's the consistency? How much chemical is he using? Does one driver put out, 4 ounces of cleaning spray versus another that does 8? How much is your costs on that? So I think, these are new cost centers that districts need to consider. And, how do you manage it, right? Like if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So there's a lot of new automated systems out there that are kind of dispersing the chemicals evenly, consistently. They're manageable, just really interesting stuff. And that has a potential application and use long term. And there's huge savings, right? There's huge savings because you don't have to have your drivers expending labor to do all that cleaning. What does that exponentially look like on an annual basis? I'm guessing the cost savings add up and really validate the potential product or health technology or giving that due or consideration. So lots of interesting stuff for him. And he said basically with the new stimulus plans, if that does pass, it is literally going to save things inside the budget, and it's going to give him all the monies he needs to really do everything that he needs to and more. So pretty exciting stuff, Ryan. I'm hopeful. I think the industry is hopeful that some of this funding comes through. And, we talk a lot about all these great conversations we had last week, and we had a great conversation with TransFinder, and they had an exciting announcement at STN Expo Virtual regarding their agreement with GPS partner Zonar. They are now an official reseller of Zonar technology. And you may have heard interviews with Antonio Civatella, TransFinder's president and CEO, and Zonar COO Michael Gould on our podcast, which was live last week. And they really talked about partnership and being better together. They were regular Sonny and Cher, Batman and Robin, right? If you're interested in finding out more about TransFinder's Wayfinder, Stop Finder, Geo Alerts, GPS, TransFinder can now streamline the entire process and give you one point of contact. Their Wayfinder driver app also makes it really easy to help your routes come along and alive as you drive. And also Stop Finder and Geo Alerts is a parent app that lets parents see where their children are on the bus in real time. To learn more about the Zonar agreement or Wayfinder or Stop Finder or all the great products TransFinder offers, you can email TransFinder at marketing@transfinder.com or give them a call at 800-373-3609. All right, coming up next, I've got a great interview with Fort Payne City Schools Transportation Director, Dr. Laran Adkins.
We are joined now by Dr. Laran Adkins, Transportation Director for Fort Payne City Schools in Alabama, up there in the northeast corner of the state. Laran, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Loren is fresh off her appearance at STN Expo Virtual last week, where she spoke on ventilation systems in school buses. It's becoming a hot topic as we get more guidance on this whole COVID-19 situation that we're in. Really, the transmission seems to be more reliant upon aerosol. So in the air, a lot of school districts now are looking at ventilation systems. We know that it's an acceptable use of funds, both under CARES Act and the Consolidated Appropriations Act that was passed late last year. And Loren, you and your team really appear to be one of the early adopters of ventilation systems in school buses. You have about 25 buses outfitted, correct? And this implementation started back in August, right?
Yes, that's correct. We started school very early in August, and as soon as we were getting ready, actually the end of July, we started talking about the HEPA filters and trying to check and see if we could get them installed on buses. So my superintendent, he was very instrumental, and he just was adamant about we had to have them. So we started checking on it, and we are actually, as far as I know, one of the first school systems in the state that put them on every route bus. So we have 24, 25 route buses, and we have installed the HEPA filtration system on every one of those. And we had it on pretty much right when school started in August. It took about a week and a half to 2 weeks to get them installed on all of our buses, all 24, 25 buses. So it took a little while, but it's been a very positive thing. So our parents and everyone is aware that we have those installed, and so far they've been working great on our buses.
So what do your routes look like right now? Obviously, across the nation, we have just a hodgepodge of learning models. It sounds like you guys are back to basically full in-person classes throughout your school district?
Yes, we have been in person since the very first day school started for us in August, and we have been in person every single day. Parents were allowed to choose to have their children be virtual if they wanted to. And as of right now, we had more virtual in the beginning than we do now. Right now, we're down to 15% virtual, 85 in person. So I guess they have felt as the year has gone on that they feel a little more secure about sending their child to school. So we are actually almost back up, where we were practically. We have, like I said, 24, 25 routes counting our tech route that takes kids out to our tech school. So.
Okay. And so you said it's been working well. Essentially, have you seen any COVID cases at all among students or drivers? It sounds like you said you guys have been in class this whole time. No going back to a hybrid model, which some schools have opened and then they had to close down again. Everything's been going really well for you. But what's the area that you're in? Can you tell us a little bit about the population?
We're rural, yes. Probably about maybe 14,000 in our town, maybe. Of course, we're using other things besides just the filtration system, to try to limit the possibility of COVID being spread. We have had some students with it, but a very small number, very small. We've had some employees with it, but not a large number compared to our overall. I believe we have 357 employees in our school system.
Okay. And then, so what are the other mitigation solutions are you using?
Well, in order to ride a bus, they have to have a mask on, and they have to keep it on the entire time. So if we pull up to a bus stop and they don't have their mask, we give them one, we have new extra ones that we keep on the bus, or they walk back to their house and get it if there's time. So they don't get on without it. And so there are disciplinary things, infractions that will happen if they get on the bus and they take them off. So they know we're very strict about that. So that's the first thing. We're also trying to seat students in the same family together, if possible. And we also have assigned seats for every single child that rides a bus. So the process this year starts with a parent going online to sign up their child for a bus. Then my secretary and I work to assign them to the bus, the route and the bus number that would be for their location. And once we contact them, then they are ready to ride. And we have a seating chart, so we know we place them on that seating chart according to, the route and if they have siblings or not. So we have a lot of things going on that are kind of helping with the situation, I think, to keep the COVID from spreading on the buses and to keep our students in school and not having to go to a hybrid model.
What other technology is Fort Payne utilizing that maybe you didn't before or in a different way? We've seen a big advent in utilizing student tracking, student ridership, even video cameras for contact tracing, for example. Mm-hmm. Is there anything new or a new use that you've implemented since COVID-19?
Well, we have always had digital camera systems on our buses. Well, I guess you could say at least for 15 to 18 years. And so our cameras just keep getting better every year as they improve the technology. So that's our main way we do contact tracing. So if a student tests positive and a nurse at the school finds out that they're positive, then the first thing that they will contact me to see, and we'll pull a video, look at the video and see who was sitting around that student on the bus, verify that they were in the correct seat and everything, and then notify the nurse back, and that nurse will then pass on that information to the people who need it and to contact parents for the students who were sitting around them on the bus that could have been possibly in the area to catch COVID.
Gotcha. And then during your session at STN Expo Virtual, what were some of the questions that some of the attendees asked? Was there a lot of interest in implementing ventilation systems? Did you come across any folks out there that already have them?
No, I did not hear of any or had any questions that I know of from people who had them. I had a lot of questions about cost and installation process. The cost for us was around $1,800 to $1,900 per bus. That is the cost of the unit and the cost of installation. Now, each of these filtration systems has, of course, a filtration system in it that cleans the air. But there's also a UV light that can be used with the units. We did not purchase the UV light because it was going to add up the expense to make it even more. So we thought we would try just the filtration system without the light first to see how that worked with our system. And we wanted to make sure we had enough money to do every bus. So that's the process we used. And I don't know that we would go back and add the light right now. I don't think we will because it's working so well. And we know we're doing something right because our kids are not getting sick. It's just very few that have been sick. We also disinfect the bus, every bus, after every single route with a electrostatic spray gun. And so then it's able to, the bus can sit and what we spray with can disseminate, throughout the bus. And it's still several hours before kids get back on there.
We're getting an article ready for our March issue right now that's looking at ventilation, but also refreshing our view on cleaning and sanitization and hearing from some readers that depending on what they're using, sometimes if they're using an electrostatic sprayer, for example, they're finding film that is left, like this residue on the seats, maybe some discoloration. Again, there's so many products out there. So we're really talking about, knowing what you're using and trying to look at the long-term health consequences of this potentially. What are you seeing from the disinfectants you're using? Are you seeing anything that might be adding some unintended consequences?
I don't believe we are right now. Now, we have had the electrostatic guns probably for 3 to 4 years. So those are not new to us. When the flu got really bad years ago is when we purchased those. Some of the first products that we ran through those guns, yes, there was somewhat of a film sometimes on the seats, but we have progressed and changed products throughout the last couple of years. And so the product we have now doesn't leave a film. It seems to work really well, and it's supposed to be safe enough. If you get it on your skin or anything, should not hurt you at all.
Good, good. And I also want to talk about funding now. So it's great you've been utilizing these electrostatic sprayers, you said, for a couple years now. So a lot of folks just started getting their feet wet with this with the CARES Act money that was passed last spring. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, there's more money that's now available and potentially more money this spring under the new administration in Washington, D.C. But what does your budget look like? Have you been able to utilize any of these federal funds that have come through the state level? And what is it looking like for you as you prepare for next year?
Well, once we got word and that we were getting the CARES Act funding, that is what we utilized for all of these units. And like I said, our superintendent, he is very proactive. So he picked what he thought would be the best hospital things to purchase with that money. And he not only made sure we had the HEPA filtration systems for every bus, but he also purchased one for every single classroom in our school system. So none of our money, I don't think you could say, was ever used for anything that wasn't very important or needed. So now our parents know, hey, on the school buses, they have the filtration systems. They even have it in every classroom in the building. So, we just got on it really quick in the beginning, and we just wanted to be proactive and do what we could. And like I said, we were the first one in Alabama, as far as I know. There's one more school system who installed one filtration system on one bus just to try it out. But from the get-go, we said we want it on every bus, which is what we did.
Okay. And what are you hearing in terms of your own budget prep? All your compatriots across the nation are busy crunching the numbers and getting your budget requests ready for 2021, 2022. How is this shaping up? What are you hearing in terms of how state funding or state reimbursement might go, especially amid all these rising costs? Like you said, obviously the CARES Act funds helped you guys immensely. Don't know if you've been able to use any or get any of the Consolidated Appropriations Act money yet that was passed the end of December. But what's that look like to you? Is this something that you feel that you might be running into some deficits going into next school year? Are you looking to benefit in addition to the federal funding? Are the levels that you normally get staying where they are or maybe even increasing?
Well, the federal funding is definitely a benefit. I'm not sure we could have installed all the filtration systems in our buses, or definitely not in the classrooms, without the CARES Act money, because state money, sometimes you just barely get by with what you get from the state. So it's been a definite plus to have the CARES Act funds that we received. And hopefully we will still continue to get some federal funding, because we will need it. Even though we've got these systems installed now, you do need to replace the HEPA filters in each of these units in the buses at least once a year. And we're still in the process. Depending on how long the buses run each day, that's going to depend on when those filters are going to be time to be changed. So we're still in the process of learning that, and it's just by using them each day. So we will need money to replace those filters, and I'm sure the same for the classrooms. So funding is very important, and federal funding is going to be a must going forward.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it takes a pandemic to get more of this federal funding for school bus operations. We'll take it if we can get it. Hopefully, though, everyone's keeping their fingers crossed that the vaccines are getting out there. Speaking of which, where does Fort Payne City Schools stand with vaccines right now, or maybe across Alabama? Is this something that you're looking to potentially get your staff and your school bus drivers in with the same group as teachers to get vaccinated soon?
Oh, definitely, yes. We're already in the same group as teachers. Our superintendent has been working with our local hospital health department and working on that. He, I guess about 3 to 4 weeks ago, went ahead and did a survey to see exactly how many employees would want to go ahead and take the vaccine as soon as it's available. And so as soon as it's available in Fort Payne, and they have enough, we're supposed to be the next group that gets them after the healthcare workers. So it should be soon. We're hoping, February, if nothing else. because I think from what he said, pretty much the majority of our staff had planned to take the vaccine.
All right. Well, best of luck to you. Hopefully you guys get that soon. Laran Adkins, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to speak with the School Transportation Nation.
You are very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks a lot to Loren and Ryan for joining us today on the podcast. Really appreciate you both. Our sponsors today of this episode are TransFinder and Zonar. You can catch all the STN Expo virtual presentations. That keynote speech by Antonio Savatella, as well as Michael Gould, can be seen on stnexpovirtual.com, along with some other great content that we have hosted there for you. Thank you for listening. Remember, visit stnonline.com for all your news and information about everything impacting student transportation, especially all that COVID-19 news. We've got funding, budgets, all that good stuff. Subscribe, stream, or share this podcast. We'd love to have you give us a review as well. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or stnpodcast.com. We love you, School Transportation Nation. Also, don't forget to check out our brand new February edition. Just came out on the website now. Go look for it. Great content, great information. You don't want to miss that great issue. We'll see you soon, Nation. Take care.